Your military background makes people uncomfortable. Maybe you should leave. That's how she said it, Patricia Whitmore, the woman who'd just become my daughter's new mother-in-law. Her words weren't loud, but they landed like a sniper shot. I'm Colonel James Sullivan, retired. 25 years defending this country. 2 tours in Iraq. A Purple Heart from shrapnel that tore through my leg while I was dragging 3 soldiers out of a burning Humvee. And that woman, wrapped in perfume and privilege, looked me dead in the eye and dismissed all of it. But that wasn't the real wound. No. The killing blow came seconds later, from someone I never expected to pull the trigger. My daughter, my blood, Kelly. She turned to me in front of 150 guests, her veil still glimmering under the chandelier lights, and said the words that cut deeper than any enemy fire. Dad, she said, your money was invited, you weren't, now go. The room went silent, forks froze halfway to lips. And I, Colonel James Sullivan, decorated, disciplined, battle-tested, stood there, unarmed against the one thing I never trained for, betrayal from my own child. But here's what they didn't know. I don't just cut checks. I control things, and the kind of things I control can destroy their perfect little social world with one phone call. 3 months earlier, when Kelly called asking for help with her wedding, I didn't hesitate. Dad, she said, the Whitmores backed out of their half. We're looking at canceling everything. Her voice cracked, the kind of panic I'd heard in young soldiers pinned down behind enemy lines. She was my only child, the little girl I used to carry on my shoulders, the one who used to draw me crayon medals when I came home from deployment. How could I say no? How much? I asked. 95,000. I didn't flinch. I'll transfer it today. The relief in her voice made every dollar worth it. Or so I thought. The first warning sign came during the rehearsal dinner. Patricia Whitmore glided across the room like a woman born to command attention. Silver hair, diamond earrings the size of guilt, a designer gown that probably cost more than a year of mortgage payments. She stopped at the bar beside me, smile perfectly sculpted, and said, James, isn't it? I understand you're in some sort of security business. Sullivan Defense Consulting. I replied, sipping my bourbon, 2 fingers neat, the kind of drink that reminds you who you are. How interesting, she said. And you were in the military, 25 years. Army, I see. Her gaze drifted around the room, already judging the table settings, the waitstaff, maybe even the air itself. Well, I do hope tomorrow's reception won't have too many war stories. The Whitmore family values a certain level of sophistication. I smiled, the kind you learn in command school, the one that hides the storm behind the eyes. Ma'am, I said, sophistication and service aren't mutually exclusive. Her laugh tinkled like wind chimes in a hurricane. Of course not. But you understand social dynamics. Perhaps tone down the military references tomorrow. For Kelly's sake, strike one. The second came the next morning. Kelly found me before the ceremony, hands trembling, eyes darting toward Patricia across the room. Dad, about your speech tonight. What about it? Mrs. Whitmore thinks maybe you should skip it. Let Charles's father handle the toasts. Charles. The groom, trust, fun prince who'd never worked a day in his life. Kelly, I said slowly, I'm your father. I know, but his family is paying for the honeymoon and the down payment on our house. It's complicated, complicated. The word people use when they're selling pieces of their soul and trying not to hear the price tag. Strike two, but love blinds even the sharpest soldier. I told myself she was nervous under pressure, that Patricia's grip on her was temporary, that a father's pride could swallow a little insult for his daughter's happiness. The ceremony was beautiful Virginia Beach Country Club, oceanfront view, golden light fading over the waves. I wore my dress blues, every medal polished, every ribbon earned. The fabric was heavy with memory. People stared not with respect, but curiosity, like I was some museum relic dragged into a room of champagne ghosts. But when Kelly walked down that aisle, radiant and trembling with joy, I forgot everything. For a moment, she was 8 years old again, running to the door when I came home on leave, shouting "Daddy," like it was the only word she knew. The reception started smooth. Cocktail hour, shrimp cocktail at $20, $5 a pound, champagne that probably cost more than a car payment. I played the part, smiling, answering polite questions about my company, my tours, my medals. Then she found me again. "James," Patricia said, glass of Dom Perignon poised like a weapon. "Does your business involve weapons? We consult on defense technologies, help companies navigate federal contracts." "Ah," she said, sipping. "And you've seen combat. 2 tours, Iraq." Her eyes shifted, tiny movement, but I saw it. "You learn to read micro expressions in war zones. They can mean the difference between life and death." How challenging that must have been. All that violence. She said the word like it was contagious. "Ma'am," I said, steady, "violence is what I helped end, not what I brought home." "Of course," she said, eyes flicking toward Kelly posing for photos. "It's just some experiences leave marks, don't they?" Strike 3 was coming. I could feel it building, like distant thunder rolling over desert sand. Dinner service began at 7:30 sharp. Prime rib, lobster tail, sides plated like art. I sat across from the Whitmores, the parents' table gleaming under crystal chandeliers. Charles Sr. was holding court with stories about yacht clubs and ski resorts. "James," he said, carving a steak, "Patricia mentioned you're in the security business. Private investigation." "Defense consulting," I corrected. "We help companies navigate military contracts. Must be quite different from your Army days," he said, tone casual, eyes condescending. "Different mission," I replied, "same principles." Patricia leaned in, smile tight. "What sort of principles? Here we go." "Integrity, accountability, mission first." "How admirable," she said, voice dripping sugar and venom. "Though I imagine civilian life requires more nuanced approaches. The military is so black and white, isn't it?" The table went silent. Even the silverware stopped. "Sophisticated thinking," she continued, "is about reading social situations, knowing when directness might be inappropriate." I set down my fork. "And what perception are you managing right now, Mrs. Whitmore? I beg your pardon. What perception are you managing by suggesting military service lacks sophistication?" Her smile faltered. "I'm simply saying that some experiences translate better to polite society than others." "Polite society," I repeated quietly. "Like wedding receptions funded by people who have seen impolite things, so you don't have to." The air froze. Even the band on stage went still. Charles Sr. cleared his throat. "James, I think what Patricia means." "I can speak for myself, Charles," she snapped. Then, turning to me, "I mean that certain backgrounds come with certain associations, violence, aggression, trauma. You think I'm traumatized. I think you've been exposed to things that might make others uncomfortable." "Others meaning who?" "Your friends, your social circle, people of a certain standing." There it was, the word that always separates the haves from the earned. "Standing," she said simply, "like the kind that comes from inheriting money versus earning it." Her cheeks flushed. "Excuse me, you heard me." Charles rose, blustering, but I fixed him with the same look that once stopped a mutiny in Kandahar. "Sit down, Charles." He sat. I leaned in, voice calm, steady. "You want to talk about standing, about sophistication. I think this conversation has gone far enough." Patricia said, voice trembling now, "I haven't even started. You want to know what really lacks sophistication?" I said quietly, leaning closer so only she could hear. "Accepting $95,000 from someone whose background embarrasses you." Her eyes widened. "We didn't ask for your money." "No," I said, glancing toward Kelly across the room. "Your son married my daughter, same thing." She waved off the approaching waiter, her hand shaking slightly. "Your daughter chose our family, James. She chose our values." Your values, I said softly, include taking money from people you consider beneath you. Nobody said anything about beneath. And that's when the music stopped. That's when every conversation died. And that's when I realized this wasn't a dinner anymore. It was a battlefield, and I was done retreating. You didn't have to say it. It was written across your faces every time your eyes flicked toward my chest at the rows of colored ribbons and medals that told a story you never cared to understand. I tapped them lightly with a finger, the sound crisp and deliberate against the silverware and murmured chatter of the reception hall. Purple Heart, Bronze Star, Combat Infantry Badge, I said quietly, but loud enough for the entire table to hear. 25 years of service you'd rather pretend doesn't exist. Those are my choices, those. I paused, feeling the weight of their silence, are my accomplishments. And they're the reason you're eating $30 a plate prime rib tonight instead of hot dogs from a food truck. The table went still, forks paused midair, wine glasses hovering. The chandeliers above caught a faint tremor of crystal, as though even the light itself hesitated to fall. Charles Whitmore, SR, finally found his voice. You're out of line. I smiled, slow, cold, measured. Am I? I said, leaning back just enough for the medals to glint under the ballroom lights. Your family backed out of paying for this wedding. Who stepped up? He straightened, stiff and defensive. That's between you and Kelly. Is it? I asked, my tone calm but carrying an edge sharp enough to slice through the music drifting from the DJ booth. Because it seems like you're enjoying the benefits while questioning the source. Patricia's eyes, calculated, polished, venomous, flashed like a blade catching sunlight. We questioned nothing about your money, Colonel, she said, each word dripping with condescension. Just the man who earned it. We questioned whether certain attitudes belong in civilized company. My smile didn't fade. Certain attitudes, I repeated, like what? She lifted her chin slightly, like the assumption that military service entitles you to respect. The room fell deathly silent. Even the neighboring tables had stopped their laughter. Forks clinked softly as people tried not to breathe. I let the silence stretch, savoring the tension. Then I smiled again, that same smile that once made enemy combatants reconsider their life choices. Ma'am, I said slowly, I never assumed anything. I earned respect. The difference, I paused, watching her composure begin to crack, is probably too sophisticated for you to understand. Her chair scraped loudly against the polished floor as she stood abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. No, I said, rising just slightly. You don't, but you already cashed my check. Her head snapped toward me. What's that supposed to mean? It means... I said, standing to my full height, shoulders square, voice steady as a morning reveille. We'll finish this conversation when you're ready to be honest about what's really bothering you. I leaned forward just enough for only her to hear the next line. That your precious social standing depends on money from people you consider beneath you. And deep down, you know it. Patricia stared at me, lips trembling, eyes narrowing into a mask of rage and panic. Then she turned and walked off toward the ladies' room, heels clicking like gunshots across marble. Charles Sr. started to follow, but I lifted one hand. She'll be back. I said quietly, people like her always come back. He hesitated, then sat down. The rest of the table pretended to resume eating, but I could feel it, the tension spreading like ripples in dark water. The kind of pressure that builds before a detonation. Someone was going to push it past the point of no return. I just hoped it wouldn't be my daughter. 15 minutes later, Patricia returned, composed, lipstick fresh, armor reapplied. The music had softened, but the air felt heavy, electric. The waitstaff moved with quiet precision now, more alert, more watchful. They weren't just serving dinner, they were assessing threat levels. I knew the look. The head waiter approached, older man, stiff-bearing, that unmistakable posture. Colonel Sullivan, he said, everything satisfactory this evening. Outstanding, Sergeant. His eyes brightened. You recognize the posture. 22 years, Marines, Force Recon, he said proudly. Outstanding, Marine, I replied. Carry on. He walked away with renewed energy. Patricia's eyes followed him, confusion etching faint lines across her powdered face. How did he know your rank? People recognize what they respect, I said simply. Charles Sr. coughed, clearly wanting to change the subject. The service here is exceptional, he muttered. We've been members for 15 years. Good staff, I said. Professional operation. What they didn't know was that I'd been here before, not as a guest, but as a partner. 3 years ago, the Virginia Beach Country Club was drowning in debt, bleeding members, desperate for salvation. They needed money, credibility, reputation. I gave them all three, $500,000 a year through Sullivan Defense Consulting. Enough to rebuild, remodel, and keep the lights on for families like the Whitmores. My signature was on their operating budget. My money had rebuilt the ballroom they were sitting in, but I'd never told Kelly. Power works best when people underestimate it. The DJ voice cut through the air. All right, folks, it's time for the first dance, the bride and groom. I turned toward the floor, heart already tightening. The song played, laughter filled the air. My moment, the father-daughter dance would come next. The one I'd imagined since she was 5, standing on my boots as I guided her around the living room. But before the song even ended, Kelly approached the table. Dad, she said quietly, eyes darting nervously toward Patricia about the father-daughter dance. My stomach dropped. What about it? Charles's father wants to do a family dance instead. You know, all the parents together. Patricia's lips curled into a polite smile. We thought it would be lovely, inclusive. All of us meaning them and me as a prop, your choice, I said, forcing a smile. Kelly exhaled in relief. Thanks for understanding. She walked away. My daughter, the little girl who once begged me for bedtime stories, who used to dance on my feet under yellow kitchen light, was now measuring affection by how well it fit into the Whitmore family photo. I excused myself, needed air, needed distance before the rage turned into something I couldn't control. The terrace opened into moonlight and salt air. The ocean stretched below, eternal, unbothered. The waves rolled in with the kind of rhythm that made you remember what permanence sounded like. Colonel Sullivan, I turned. A young man in a black suit stood near the railing, alert stance, squared shoulders. Staff Sergeant Thompson, Marine Security Forces, he said, extending a hand. Part of the security detail tonight. Security detail. Yes, sir, 5-man team. Club insurance requires prior service personnel for events this size. Good policy, I said. Sir, he continued, lowering his voice, just wanted to say, it's an honor to work an event where you're present. Word gets around in the veteran community. I raised an eyebrow. What word? That you take care of your own, sir? That Sullivan Defense hires veterans, real jobs, real pay? I nodded slowly. Good people deserve good work. Yes, sir. Also, we're aware of your corporate partnership with the club. Management briefed us on VIP protocol. For major sponsors and board members, he said, different security considerations. How many people know about the sponsorship? Just senior management and security. Confidential policy. Good. I said, very good. He smiled. Beautiful event, sir. Your daughter looks happy. Happy. The word stung. Yes, Sergeant, I said quietly. She looks happy enough to erase her father from it. The room was all crystal light and polite chatter until I broke the illusion. That's just business, is it? I said, my voice slicing through the laughter like a blade drawn in a church. The microphone in my hand felt heavy, solid, the weight of every battle, every memory that had led to this moment. Faces turned toward me, confused at first, then slowly, nervously attentive. I saw Patricia Moore, the club's event coordinator, glance down at her tablet, already sensing trouble before she knew its shape. Patricia, I said evenly, tell them about the insurance requirements. Her fingers trembled slightly as she scrolled. Events over 100 guests require a minimum 5-person security detail, professional catering insurance, liability coverage for alcohol service, and emergency medical protocols. I stepped forward, my shoes echoing against the marble floor. Protocols managed by whom? Her lips parted, hesitant. Sullivan Defense Consulting holds our primary service contracts. The silence thickened. Guests shifted in their chairs, realizing the name wasn't just familiar, it was mine. Which means, I continued, voice low but cutting, tonight's entire operational framework runs through my companies. Murmurs broke like a rising tide. I let them build. Tension was its own music, but here's the interesting part, I said, pacing slowly across the floor like a general in enemy territory. All of those contracts have very specific clauses. What clauses? Asked Charles Sr., his voice tight with impatience. Patricia looked trapped, eyes darting between us. Termination provisions, she said quietly. If the corporate sponsor withdraws support, all associated service contracts can be canceled with 24 hours notice. 24 hours. I paused, then looked up sharply, or immediately, under certain circumstances. The air itself seemed to hesitate. Every whisper died at once. I took back the microphone, turned to face 150 stunned faces, friends, business partners, and family who had mistaken my silence for weakness. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, the bass of my voice carrying across the hall. I apologize for the interruption, but there's something you should know about this evening. The crowd leaned in. My reflection stared back from the polished floor. A retired soldier in full-dress blues, medals glinting under the chandeliers, dignity turned into a weapon. My name is Colonel James Sullivan, United States Army, retired. I'm Kelly's father, and I'm the corporate sponsor who makes this venue possible. A ripple ran through the room, a confusion, disbelief, realization. I could see the precise moment each guest remembered the brass plaque outside reading Sullivan Veterans Hall. 3 years ago, I continued, this club faced bankruptcy. Sullivan Defense Consulting stepped in with a partnership agreement, $500,000 annually, plus veteran employment programs, plus the event bookings that keep these lights on. The whispers grew into a soft roar. I raised a hand, and silence obeyed. Tonight has been beautiful, I said gently. Kelly looks radiant. Charles seems like a fine man. I've been honored to contribute to this celebration. I let the words hang, warm but heavy, a lull before the storm. But I've learned something this evening. Something I never thought I'd have to learn in my own family. I paused long enough for the sound of air conditioning to fill the room. I've learned that some people believe military service disqualifies veterans from polite society, that our sacrifices embarrass sophisticated people, that our money is welcome, but our presence is not. You could hear breathing in the stillness. Kelly's hand rose to her mouth. Patricia Whitmore, her new mother-in-law, looked pale beneath the expensive makeup. So, I said quietly, I'm going to honor that preference. Kelly stepped forward. Dad, what are you doing? I'm leaving, I said. As requested, Dad, please, but since my money was invited. I continued, and I wasn't. I'm taking my money with me. Gasps broke the quiet. I handed a sealed envelope to Patricia Moore, the termination orders, her face drained of color as she read. Effective immediately. I said clearly, Sullivan Defense Consulting withdraws all financial support from the Virginia Beach Country Club. Sponsorship agreements terminated. Service contracts canceled. Veteran employment programs dissolved. The words hit like gunfire. Patricia Moore stammered, Colonel Sullivan, please reconsider. Staff Sergeant Thompson, I called. Yes, sir. Redeploy your team. Immediate withdrawal. Understood, sir. 5 uniformed security personnel moved in silent unison. No argument, no aggression, just perfect, practiced precision. Every step echoed the discipline that had built the empire now dissolving before these people's eyes. You can't do this, Patricia Whitmore finally shouted, voice shrill. I'm not doing anything, I said evenly. I'm honoring your request that I leave. The ballroom buzzed with low panic, but the club will have to find new sponsorship, new security, new veteran programs, new partnerships. I added, letting each word fall like a hammer. This is ridiculous, barked Charles Sr., over a misunderstanding. I turned to him slowly. Over disrespect for military service, for the sacrifices made by better men and women than you'll ever meet. Kelly grabbed my arm, tears threatening her mascara. Dad, you're overreacting, am I? I asked softly. Kelly, your mother-in-law spent 20 minutes explaining why veterans don't belong in civilized company, in front of a room full of people who depend on veteran-created businesses for their jobs. And you sided with her. I was just trying to keep the peace. No, I cut in. You were choosing social advancement over family loyalty. The guests shifted, caught between sympathy and fear. I swept my hand toward the exit, toward my team. Look around this room. Every bit of it, the staff, the logistics, the lights, exists because veterans like me built opportunities for veterans like them. The photographer's flash cracked through the silence, capturing the moment history turned on itself. According to your new family, I continued, their service embarrasses polite people. Their presence makes sophisticated guests uncomfortable. That's not what I meant, Patricia cried. Ma'am, I said, voice calm but final, you said exactly what you meant, and now you'll get exactly what you asked for. Contracts terminate at midnight, I told Patricia Moore. Security withdrawal immediate. Inform your staff. She nodded, voice barely audible. Understood, Colonel. I looked back at Kelly, my daughter, radiant in her $10,000 dress, trembling like the child who once saluted me at the airport. You wanted your father gone, I said softly. Your father is gone, but so is everything he built here. Dad, please, you made your choice, I said, voice breaking for the first time. In front of 150 witnesses. Now live with the consequences. I turned toward the guests, most too stunned to breathe. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending my daughter's wedding. I hope you've enjoyed the evening, because it represents the last event of its kind this venue will ever host. A murmur rose, disbelief, panic, embarrassment. I saw the realization flicker in every pair of eyes. They had just witnessed the death of a dynasty. Staff, Sergeant Thompson, I said, ready, sir, execute withdrawal. The team moved as one. Patricia Moore's voice wavered. Colonel Sullivan, what about the upcoming events, the anniversary gala, the corporate dinner? Canceled, I said flatly. The veteran-staffed catering company won't be available, neither will security. You had contracts past tense with people who believed in respect. Then came the journalist's voice, clear, professional. Colonel Sullivan, Diana Brooks, Hampton Roads Military Times. May I have a comment on tonight's events? I smiled faintly. Miss Brooks, respect is earned, not purchased. And some prices are too high to pay, even for family, especially for family. Kelly's voice cracked behind me. Dad, wait, we can fix this. Fix what? I turned to face her, the ballroom fading behind her tearful eyes. The shame, the silence, the fact that you stood by while your father was humiliated. They don't think that. They do, Kelly. You spent the night agreeing with them. You were trying to keep everyone happy, and you forgot integrity isn't negotiable. But what about forgiveness? She whispered. I exhaled. Family loyalty works both ways. You chose peace, but peace built on disrespect isn't peace. It's surrender. I handed her an envelope, white, heavy. Your wedding gift, I said. She opened it, eyes widening at the $50,000 check. Dad, I can't take this. Yes, you can, because unlike the Whitmores, I don't use money to punish people. Then why? Because gifts shouldn't buy respect, I said. But they should remind you where it comes from. The room fell into a suffocating silence. 150 faces stared as a father turned his back on a legacy, and on the daughter who'd forgotten it. I motioned to Thompson, document the withdrawal, inform our partners which venues no longer support veterans. Understood, sir. As I reached the doorway, Patricia Whitmore's voice cut through the air like a shriek. "James, you're being childish." I turned slowly, met her eyes. "No, ma'am," I said. "I'm being decisive." And then, without another word, the doors closed behind me. The chandeliers still shimmered, but the light inside the ballroom had changed. It was the kind of silence that follows a storm, the kind that leaves nothing standing. "Fade to black. Ma'am, I'm being decisive," I said, calm, unflinching. The words weren't anger, they were closure. Over wounded pride, over earned respect, over years of quiet lessons paid for in blood and time. There's a difference, one you only understand when the stakes stop being symbolic and start costing $500,000 in annual revenue. The elevator doors closed. The sound of Kelly's voice faded behind the mirrored steel. "Dad, please," she called, but some withdrawals are permanent. Outside, the parking lot felt like another world entirely. The roar of conversation inside was replaced by the hush of a cool Atlantic breeze. The air smelled of salt and cut grass, and the stars pressed faintly through the city's glow, small, defiant lights over a man who'd finally chosen principle over peace. Staff Sergeant Thompson waited by the car, posture straight, jaw tight. "Sir," he said, "team redeployed, perimeter secure, status of venue security." "Club management scrambling, sir. They're contacting Hampton Security Services for emergency coverage. Hampton's veteran-owned," I said quietly. "Marcus Rodriguez, former Army MP." "Yes, sir. Word is, he'll decline once he hears why they're calling." "Word spreads how?" I asked. "Sir," Thompson said, "that photographer, Diana Brooks. She's recording audio. This'll be a Military Times feature. 20,000 print, plus online distribution. Nationwide reach. When?" "She said Sunday morning, sir." Headline sounded like, "When Military Respect Meets Social Status." I almost smiled. Good, let the story run. Through the glass doors of the country club, I saw confusion erupt into chaos. Guests clustering, staff whispering. Patricia Moore's carefully constructed civility dissolving under the weight of consequence. I turned away. "Sir," Thompson said. "Corporal Rodriguez joined us. Club manager requests to speak. Tell her I'm unavailable. She's asking about reversal options, reinstatement." Negative, withdrawals permanent. My phone buzzed a message from Kelly. "Dad, please come back. We need to talk." I showed it to Thompson. "Assessment Staff Sergeant, sir." He said carefully that ship sailed. She made her choice in public in front of witnesses. Agreed. Another buzz, Patricia Moore this time, then another. "People will lose jobs. Please reconsider." I handed the phone to Rodriguez. "Any recommended response?" He looked at it steady. "Sir, apologies that follow consequence aren't contrition. They're damage control. And the jobs." "Sir, those jobs existed because of your contracts. If the venue doesn't respect veterans, veteran-created jobs shouldn't prop it up. Mission integrity, sir." I nodded slowly. "Sound logic, Rodriguez." I took back the phone and typed, "Kelly, some lessons cost more than others. This one cost you a father and the club $500,000. Choose your next words carefully. Send." Her reply came within seconds. "That's not fair. I was trying to keep everyone happy." "Fair," I typed, "would have been defending the man who raised you instead of appeasing people who called veterans an embarrassment." "They don't think that," she shot back. "They said it out loud. You agreed. You didn't prevent a scene. You enabled disrespect." 3 minutes of silence. Then, "What do you want from me?" I stared at the screen, the weight of every year between us pressing through my chest. "I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You chose social acceptance over family loyalty. That choice has a price. What price? Learning that respect based on money isn't respect, it's transaction." "I don't understand." "You will," I wrote, "when they stop returning your calls because your father no longer funds their lifestyle." No response, just the long, cold emptiness of read receipts. Then, Diana Brooks approached. She had her camera down, her recorder visible. "Colonel Sullivan," she said, professional, steady. "One question. What message should tonight send to the veteran community?" I met her gaze. "That respect isn't negotiable. That military service deserves recognition, not apology. And that family should be the one place where your worth isn't questioned." "Will you reconcile with your daughter?" "That depends," I said softly, "on whether she understands what she sacrificed tonight." By dawn, the Military Times piece was trending. By noon, calls poured in, 20. 3 from veteran business owners, 5 from journalists, 3 from retired officers. The words country club confrontation spread faster than any PR firm could contain. Patricia Moore called first. Then Charles Whitmore. Then Kelly's silence stretched into its own kind of statement. The fallout wasn't quiet, it was methodical. Hampton Security declined the club's contract. The Tidewater Veterans Association called an emergency meeting. By Monday night, 87 veteran business owners voted unanimously to blacklist Virginia Beach Country Club. The press called it the Sullivan Doctrine. I called it consequence. By Thursday, Kelly called. "Dad, we need to talk." She arrived at my office at 1,400 hours. No makeup, no jewelry, just the daughter I remembered before status got between us. She sat across the same desk where I interviewed veterans for jobs, her hands shaking. "Dad, I read the article. I didn't recognize myself in it." "You did what you did," I said. "The article didn't make that choice. I know," she whispered. "I wanted them to like me, the Whitmores, their friends. I thought I could make everyone happy." "You can't keep everyone happy by sacrificing principle," I said. "I know that now." She exhaled, eyes wet. "Charles's family won't even talk to me now that your contracts are gone. And the people who stopped respecting me when you pulled your support. I realized they never respected me at all." "Progress, what do you want from me, Kelly?" "A chance to earn back your respect." "How?" "However long it takes, whatever it requires." I turned toward the window. Norfolk Harbor laid out beneath the fading light. Gray ships moving like discipline made visible. "Respect," I said, "isn't something you earn once and keep forever. You prove it daily, especially when no one's watching." "I understand," she said. "Do you?" "Because Saturday night, you had a choice between loyalty and social comfort." "I was wrong," she said, voice breaking. And I want to show you who I can become." I turned back. The little girl who once saluted me with her plastic toy rifle was gone. The woman in front of me looked smaller but truer. "Kelly," I said quietly, "we can rebuild, but differently. No more choosing convenience over integrity. No more shame in family or service." "Yes, sir," she whispered the first time she'd called me that in 20 years. I nodded once. "Then let's start over. This time with clear expectations about what honor means." She smiled through tears, and for the first time since the night of her wedding, I felt something other than disappointment, a cautious pride. Some bridges burn clean, others smolder until someone finds the courage to rebuild. This one, I decided, might just hold. 2 months later, the Virginia Beach Country Club held its first public event since the fallout. Not a wedding, not a gala, but a veteran appreciation dinner organized by Kelly Sullivan, Whitmore. The chandeliers glowed softer that night, and the laughter was quieter, humbler, stripped of arrogance. Kelly stood at the podium where her father had once announced his departure, her hands trembling around the microphone. 2 months ago, she began, I watched this room fall silent for the wrong reasons. I stood by and let pride, fear, and vanity speak louder than respect. Tonight, I want to correct that. She gestured toward the audience, a sea of uniforms, old and new, medals gleaming like ghosts of memory. My father taught me that honor doesn't retire, and neither should gratitude. Cameras flashed, reporters took notes, and somewhere in the back, Colonel James Sullivan watched, not with pride yet, but with quiet acknowledgement. As the applause filled the hall, Kelly searched for him through the crowd, and for one fleeting moment their eyes met. He nodded once, a soldier's salute in the form of forgiveness, and then turned to leave before the applause died down. Outside, the night was calm again. The flags along the coast fluttered in the wind, and for the first time in a long time, both father and daughter understood. Respect, once lost, could be earned back, not through money or status, but through courage, and though some scars would never fade, they could still guide the light home.